Well, hello and welcome to this edition of the EV Revolution Show. Thanks very much for taking the time to tune in to this edition where I'm going to talk about some of the announcements that came out this week from CES, the Consumer Electronics Show going on in Las Vegas. Even though it's been scaled down, there's still all kinds of stuff happening. And of course, that show has turned into a lot of auto stuff over the last few years. So there's some EV stuff coming out. So let me get right into it. Again, thanks for tuning in and hope you enjoy the show. All right, so the first coverage we're going to start talking about is from GM. They had a whole bunch of stuff come out at CES. And, as usual, major announcements come at big shows. And this year's scaled down CES in Las Vegas is, of course, no exception. Now, GM has come out of the gate with some great reveals and news. So let me try to summarize it all. Now, CEO Mary Barra was on the virtual stage to once again reinforce GM's commitment to an all-electric future. Now remember folks, they are the only major OEM to set a phase-out target for ending the sale of ICE vehicles, which is 2035 right now. Well, actually, there is another company too doing the same thing and sooner, but they are smaller and I'll cover them on another episode. Now back to GM, they had already committed that all light-duty vehicles, or LDVs, will be electric by 2035. However, at CES they took it up a notch by also adding heavy-duty vehicles, or HDVs, to this same target. Now, I've not heard any other major OEM state that. Retooling existing plants, opening new battery plants, and increasing EV production in North America by 50% this decade are steps that GM is taking to help achieve these targets. Mary also discussed GM's vehicle game plan for this decade and announced a whole slew of new EVs coming out this year and in 2023. And this will account for about 8 of the 30 electrics planned globally by them for 2030. 2 of these vehicles are already in production and were updated for 2022, the Bolt EV and the Bolt EUV. GM is well on its way to completing the battery recalls on the existing and new vehicles, so we should see production start up again soon. Now, adding to these in 2022 are the Hummer EV and the Cadillac Lyriq. And for 2023, GM will bring these models to market: the Silverado EV, the Equinox EV, Blazer EV, and the Cadillac Celestiq. So you can see that GM is really serious about their electrification plans and how fast they are bringing a good depth and range of EVs to market. I, for one, am super excited for GM. As you folks know, I've been saying it over and over again, so I hope that you are too. Now, let me talk about a couple of these new vehicle announcements that they did this week at CES. And the first and the most significant by far is the 2024 Chevrolet Silverado All-Electric. Now, it was teased last month, but now we got all the info on the brand new Silverado All-Electric pickup truck. Not to be outdone by Ford and their F-150 Lightning, GM's reimagining of the brand's best-selling nameplate is packed with the power and capability expected of Chevy trucks. Remember, folks, that this truck has been developed from the ground up as a fully electric truck based on GM's advanced Ultium EV platform. So at launch, the Silverado EV will be available in 2 configurations: an RST First Edition with a starting MSRP price of $105,000 US, and a fleet-oriented work truck, or WT model, that has a starting MSRP of about $39,900 US. Other models scaling in price from $50,000 to $80,000 US will be available later on. So these are some of the vehicle highlights for the Silverado EV. GM has an expected range of 400 miles on a full charge, and that's on both versions, the WT and the RST. Now, power for the WT version comes from a dual-motor, all-wheel drive setup, providing about 510 horsepower and 615 pound-feet of torque. Power for the RST top-of-the-line model again has an all-wheel drive configuration, providing 664 horsepower and 780 pound-feet of torque. GM estimates 0 to 60 mile-an-hour times of less than 4.5 seconds in the RST trim. Now, all models will support as standard DC fast charging up to 350 kilowatts. GM has not released the AC Level 2 charging specs, and I did actually ask them that today, and they couldn't give me an answer, but I would guess that they're probably going to support at least up to 11 kilowatts, or maybe even a bit more, since that seems to be the new norm now. Now, they have stated that they will provide up to 10.2 kilowatts of off-board VTL, or vehicle-to-load power, on both the trim levels. Now, of course, pickup truck buyers want to know payload and towing capabilities. Up to 10,000 pounds of maximum trailering and 1,300 pounds of payload for the RST version, and the work truck can support up to 8,000 pounds of towing and 1,200 pounds of payload. On top of these specs, there is a whole lot more of info like four-wheel steering and automatic adaptive air suspension and all kinds of other goodies. You should go to their website and check out for all the details and the specs on the vehicle. However, one neat thing that was introduced by GM for the trucks was the payload bed area. Now, the standard size for this bed is 5 feet 11 inches. However, GM has devised a feature that they call the midgate. Now, this feature opens the bed area into the rear seat area, and by folding those seats down, you can increase the bed length to 9 feet. And if you open the tailgate to its longest part, and now the length increases to 10 feet 10 inches. And on top of that, you can add a weatherproofed and lockable tonneau cover to keep out all the elements from your cargo. Oh, and yes, it will also have a huge front trunk or frunk. GM calls it the E-trunk, which looks, in my opinion, very similar to the F-150 trunk. Now, availability for North America will happen next year in the spring of 2023, with the launch of the WT version for fleets coming first. And then the RST, the higher price trim, will be on sale for the fall of 2023, followed by other trims and various options throughout the rest of 2023 and into 2024. Now, no doubt that GM will have a winner on their hands with this, and I expect them to sell out of reservations and get more than they think they will get, like Ford has for the Lightning. In fact, Mary also said that they already have orders for the fleet versions from two major companies, Enterprise Car Rental and Quanta. Now, there was no mention of numbers, but in my opinion, they should be fairly sizable. Now, knowing this, and with some hindsight that you would think GM has by now, I hope they plan for strong production numbers and ramp up quickly, as this will be another great seller in 2023. Now, on that note, as I was just about to start filming this, the news came out that they sold out this past Thursday, by the way, in 12 minutes, of the initial reservation run for the RST version. And that's a US sellout. And I did check the Canadian website, and they're sold out too now. And remember, folks, that this is for the $105,000 US version, which equates to an MSRP on the Canadian website of $119,948. And these aren't coming until well over a year from now, the fall of 2023. Now, we don't know how many units are in this initial production run, but I would estimate that it would need to be in the tens of thousands at least in order for GM to go through the motions of production and get everything ready. So, this is really, really good news, and congratulations to GM. The GM also announced the Chevrolet Equinox EV, which is coming in the fall of 2023 as well, and it will be an affordable, functional, compact SUV that will start at an estimated MSRP of about $30,000 in the US. Now, not much info was provided on this announcement. However, the Equinox EV will be launched in both fleet and retail versions, including LT and RS trims, and will also leverage GM's Ultium platform. To quote GM, the Equinox has always played an important role for Chevrolet as the second highest selling brand nameplate, said Steve Hill, Chevrolet Vice President. Providing an affordable EV option in the industry's highest volume segment proves that Chevy is going to make EVs available to everyone. Now, I applaud them from that, and this announcement of the Equinox EV comes on the heels, of course, as I just mentioned, the Silverado EV reveal, and also they confirmed that they're going to do a Blazer EV SUV as well. which will be available around the same time, the spring of 2023. So more info should be following for both of these models later this year. But again, what has got me excited about this announcement is the affordability aspect of these. These are popular models by GM, and for them to start looking at price points and making them more affordable is going to help get Americans, Canadians, and other jurisdictions where these are sold, those people excited to want to get into an EV. And that is all good news. Now, talking about BrightDrop, Mary also went on to talk about the success that they've had with BrightDrop, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of General Motors. Now, she announced that they made the delivery of the first BrightDrop EV 600s, 5 of them actually to be exact, to their first customer, which is FedEx. This maps into FedEx's plans to transform their pickup and delivery fleet, which I think number well over 200,000 vehicles. And they want to transform it to electric by 2030. Now, FedEx has placed an initial order for 500 of these EV 600s. And additionally, it was announced that Walmart also placed reservations for 5,000 of these BrightDrop EVs for 2023 deliveries, with more probably to follow later on because they have this big plan to electrify their fleets as well. So again, it's all great stuff all around. Just to round out the GM info, GM also announced more technology offerings with their Ultra Cruise next generation autonomous driving systems. Capable of about 95% door-to-door drives, hands-free, on supported roadways, this is sure to get some excitement when it premieres in the new Cadillac Celestiq next year. GM also wants to come out with the first personal autonomy vehicles based on their Cruise technology by 2025. And finally, GM also reminded folks of some of their Halo concept stuff going on, including the Aero Mobility vehicles, which are basically large drones that can carry people that fly, the Social Space vehicles, which are driverless people movers, and the new Inner Space, which is a 2-person electric concept. So lots of stuff again going on at GM, folks. And if you're really not believing what they're doing, then you probably should go back under the rock and just ignore all the news that's out there, because they are doing a lot of stuff. These are exciting times, and continue to stay tuned for more. All right, so switching gears to Mecerdes-Benz, also at CES, they unveiled a new electric concept car called the Vision EQXX. And as with previous CES concepts by the Stuttgart-based company, the Vision EQXX is not a concrete forerunner of a production model, but it is intended to provide a preview of a range of technologies that are aimed to make production vehicles more economical. Now, the mission of the car is to become the most efficient Mercedes-Benz ever built, as the manufacturer has stated. In terms of range, the Vision EQXX is to reach a new level with over 1,000 kilometers or 621 miles from a single battery charge. And this is not due to a larger battery, but to the more efficient use of the energy. Now, these basic levers to achieve that are anything but new. You have a powertrain itself is to become more efficient. Lightweight materials help reduce weight, and special tires with lower rolling resistance also contribute. Now, combined with sophisticated aerodynamics, in this case the drag coefficient is 0.17, and integrate some solar cells into it, and you can bring consumption numbers to be below 10 kilowatt hour per 100 kilometers, which, folks, if you drive an EV, you know that's a low number. Now, additionally, the radically new drive concept developed by Mercedes-Benz is supposed to enable an efficiency of 95% from the battery to the wheels and use components to reduce energy loss as much as possible. Now, not too many more specs were provided other than that this concept has a 100 kilowatt hour battery pack and a power output of 150 kilowatts. Mercedes states that many of these innovative developments are already being integrated into production, and some of them are targeted in the next generation of the MMA, the modular architecture for compact and mid-size vehicles from them. Now, I love to see the technology advancements in this EV industry, and it's great that Mercedes is pushing forward on this. Now let's talk about Chrysler. U.S. Stellantis brand Chrysler has unveiled its airflow concept at CES, giving a glimpse of its electric future. Chrysler aims to launch its first battery electric vehicle model by 2025 and offer an all-electric vehicle range by 2028. The Chrysler Airflow concept represents the beginning of the brand's journey to a fully electrified future. Now, we're not sure which of the Stellantis platforms it's based on. There's the STLA Medium and the STLA Large platforms that were announced last year by Stellantis. But what was revealed was that this concept is an all-wheel drive dual motor setup offering a total of 300 kilowatts of power. Now, the battery should allow a range of 350 to 400 miles on a full charge, which would be about 560 to 640 kilometers. Chrysler did not provide information on the capacity of the battery. However, for classification, we do know that the STLA Medium is designed for 87 to 104 kilowatt-hour packs, and the STLA Large configuration is designed for 101 to 118 kilowatt-hour packs. So this vehicle should have something in that range. And there has really no more info other than what I've just said about this concept was provided, but I do hope we see something more tangible in the not-so-distant future. Now, as a reminder, Stellantis does want to provide an electrified version, both BEV and plug-in hybrid versions for 98% of the group's models in Europe by 2025. And by 2030, there will be at least one battery electric version for all models. In the North American market space, they want 96% of their models to be electrified by 2025 and a BEV variant for all models by 2030. And since I talked about GM's pickup truck, I want to finally talk about the Ford F-150 Lightning. In this episode, it really doesn't come from CES, but it's to do with the Ford F-150 Lightning that they've announced that they've begun inviting reservation holders for the product, the electric pickup truck, to start placing their orders. Now, after this first wave, other waves of reservation holders will be invited over the next few months for the 2022 model year. Then those who didn't get the chance for this model year will for subsequent ones. Now, Ford didn't disclose the size of the waves, but the company clarified that it's aiming to nearly double the production levels it previously disclosed for the Lightning, now up to about 150,000 per year or more. Now, that follows up on the plan announced last November, in which Ford said they're aiming to make 600,000 EVs per year by the end of 2023, which is the end of next year, folks. It's not that far away. And Ford has also accelerated production of its Mach-E electric SUV. And don't forget that the E-Transit has garnered a lot of reservations and attention and interest, and it should be a very well-wanted EV as well. Now, for the F-150 Lightning, Ford plans to make first deliveries this spring, with production and supply of key propulsion components coming from various Michigan facilities. Oh, and another reason that this is significant in the cause to move forward EV adoption? Well, Ford revealed survey data suggesting that nearly 80% of Lightning reservation holders have never owned a battery electric vehicle. Hey, this is music to my ears, folks. This is why I do what I do, right? And clearly why the F-150 electrification was such a tipping point for the EV industry. Opened up a whole new market segment, a whole new buyer segment. So now what Ford and the other traditional ICE V OEMs need to do that are pivoting to electrification is to go above and beyond in educating their customers about EV ownership and getting their supporting dealer networks educated and motivated as well. So good on Ford. All right, and that's it for this edition of the EV Revolution Show. Thanks very much for tuning in. I hope you're as excited about it, what's going on, as I am. And if you're watching me on YouTube, I appreciate that. If you have not subscribed, please do. It's always important to get subscribers. And you can also ring that bell, get notified of new episodes, turn your notifications on, and you will know when I put out a new show. So I appreciate that. If you are a Patreon supporter, thank you very much. You know who you are. I'm always extremely very humbled about Patreon. If you're interested in learning more and you want to help support me in these busy efforts, please check out the link below. Continue to stay safe, of course. We're going through interesting times again, especially here in Ontario. So just continue to play it safe, use your common sense, and stay safe with you and your families. And continue to watch the EV revolution and the EV market space, because there's lots and lots of stuff going on. So until the next episode, again, please, everybody, stay safe, and I will see you when I see you. Take care, and bye-bye.